Welcome to Sustainable Leadership Live. I'm Lisa Danforth, your host, and today I have the always joyful Jonathan Goffe with us here today. Jonathan, thanks so much for jumping on. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say.
Thanks for having me. I am excited to be here.
Awesome.
And I'm glad somebody's excited to hear something I have to say.
I always am, especially about this. This is such a big topic and it's such a sensitive topic. So I'm really grateful that you're showing up and just sharing some of your wisdom with us so that we can kind of get those nuts and bolts perspectives of how to start shifting where we're at. But before we jump in, I really want to share a little bit about Jonathan and why I have him here chatting with me today. Jonathan is the Senior Consultant and the Senior Managing Director of Vermont Consumer Credit, VCCC. He founded VCCC in 2021 after spending years in financial institutions doing individual credit counseling and debt negotiation. And he has saved Vermonters millions of dollars in debt negotiations over his career. Jonathan started his career in social work and back office administrative roles. And his early career included roles in specialized social work, corrections, and corporate banking in Vermont and across New England. And today we are talking about being financially aware is the passport to financial freedom. So I
Mhm.
say, let's jump right in. How about you?
We can jump right in.
Okay.
We can go right to the entree.
Perfect. Yeah. No appetizer whatsoever.
No appetizer whatsoever.
We were talking in the green room about how knowledge is power. And I'm just such a huge believer in that because we can make better choices when we're more knowledgeable. So I say, let's start there. And if you can just sort of let us know, what are some of the pieces that we need to be knowledgeable about?
That's such a wide question. Because I would say a lot of our knowledge is inherited, and we inherit things that we like get from our older siblings, our parents, or grandparents, and we kind of take those habits. And if we don't actually grow from that knowledge, then we kind of repeat their mistakes too. So it's not just about taking the knowledge we get as we grow up, but it's also about probably making some mistakes and getting some knowledge on our own. You know, I think most people would say we learned most of our lessons the hard way.
That would definitely be me.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we have to, I believe, embrace the hardships and really lean into it so that we can learn. How else do we learn, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like a child learning to walk. We're going to fall down and get banged up.
Yeah. I spend a lot of my days dealing with people's mistakes, actually. No one comes to me and is like, oh, everything is perfect. My budget is balanced. I qualify for everything. And I actually have a perfect savings plan. No one
Mhm.
says that to me.
Yeah.
People come to me with their hardships, and often they've learned, once we get through the hardship, they learn the lesson. It comes full circle. They learn how to avoid the mistake, how to manage the mistake if it does happen, and how to possibly see the mistake coming and how to kind of brace themselves for it. And that when it comes to finances, a lot of that will just start with a savings plan, a
Mhm.
$5 savings plan, a $1 savings plan, a change jar on your kitchen counter, you know? So that's how it starts.
I love the simplicity of it. We like to make things so tough, right? I don't have money, yet we'll go and get a Starbucks coffee or whatever. And just really starting in. So how do we notice where to start? I know that the change jar or wherever, but what are some other basics that people could start leaning into or recognizing that they need to start building their knowledge?
Um, it depends on their life. I can say that everybody is very different. People who have grown up with what you'd, I guess, a rude way to say it would be a silver spoon in their mouth, also need to learn how to do certain things simply and um, uh, kind of on a basic level. I had a friend who was a property manager, and he would get checks that were just signed by the parents from his tenants who were college students. They would just hand him a blank check, not filled out. So like where does the lesson start? I don't know. I do credit education at South Burlington schools at the Big Picture program, and I had a lot of those kids who were juniors and seniors say, I know more about credit than my parents now. So where does the lesson start? You can start really young. You can start, as a teenager, with a savings plan. You're going to make mistakes. Don't try to avoid that. But start with a savings plan, just $1, a change jar on the counter. That's where you start. You start with an action that leads to a result. Save a quarter every day for a week, and what do you have? I can't do that. I'm not good at math.
It very basic, and I'm so happy to hear that schools are starting to do that. I know when my boys went through school, they're 23 and 25 now, there was no educational program. And I remember taking them to my financial advisor and having them sit down and talk with them. And it would be great to have something at elementary school so they start learning about that.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. They will teach you how to make a pound cake.
This is true. And lots of things that we don't really, at least I don't think I used.
And how to make a hard-boiled egg, but how to balance a checkbook, not really high on that priority list.
Right? Let's avoid that conversation.
Exactly.
What would you say is the top, 2 or 3 struggles when people come to you because they're in debt or they're just really having a hard time? What are the top few things? Because I think it's so important to discuss this so that we can understand how many people are struggling with this. We always think we're alone in these things.
That is a really good question. Top 3, I'll say top 3. And the top 3, I would think everybody will have their own different top 3s.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say in the top 3 is something that is not related to money. It is not related to your personal habits in regards to whether you go out and buy lunch every day. The top 3 thing is shame.
Mm-hmm.
The top 3 is, it might be number 1, because even if we see something that we should change, keeping up appearances and admitting that there is something wrong is part of the huge picture, because we also are kind of taught at a really young age to keep our money issues really silent. We are taught to let other people always think that we are doing well financially. We are taught to, kind of keep up with the Joneses. And I think that is at least one of the 3 things that I see with every client, is that there is kind of a shame aspect. They're nervous about me pulling their credit to see what their credit score is. It's really awful. I think another 2 aspects are, a lot of people don't understand the basic products that are available to them at their financial institution. So they just have a debit card, a savings account, a checking account. And, they think that that's it. But there's so many other products available to them. And if they really got to know their financial institution, they would know that they actually have the tools to help them save, to help them build credit, to help them, get on a path to home ownership. Most of the financial institutions do that, especially credit unions. I'm a big fan of credit unions. Yeah. And of course, the third is, people around them that will interview them about money. They need to have supportive people around them. I think those are the 3 things. Like, when they come to me, they're alone. If they have people that they can talk to, it helps.
So where would you suggest people start that are sitting there buried in debt? We've had a pandemic. People are struggling all over the place. What are some of the different areas that would, I don't see you feel less invasive, but less scary to start reaching out? And because I do believe shame just has us gripped. I know in my business as a leadership coach, as a business coach, a lot of what keeps people doing the things that getting in their way is shame and keeping it hidden. So what are some things that people can start leaning into, being curious about and whatnot to open up the door to this?
Pull back the curtain, maybe. Look at your credit report, look and see what your debt is. It's a lot of people, just even looking at it is a terrifying aspect. So if you want to start somewhere, let's see it. It's like if you are on let's say a health journey. One of the first things they do is say, get on a scale. If you're trying to build muscle, you want to see where you are. You're trying to lose weight, you want to see where you are. Look at your credit report. Look at your expenses. Look at what you're paying. How many subscriptions and apps do you have that you're paying for that you're not using? I'm guilty of that. If my husband saw the rail list, he probably wouldn't be really happy.
Just
So,
put that one away.
like that's the truth of it. Thank goodness, that it's easy to kind of get that information. It's all digital. But I
Mhm.
think pulling back the curtain and taking a look at what is really there is a good sense. It's going to be stressful. It's going to create anxiety, but looking at it makes it real.
I love how you put it against, our health, our diet, or whatever, because you do have to look. It comes back to where we started. Knowledge is power, and
All the
just
time.
knowing what the numbers
Mhm.
are. Studies show that that alone really starts to open the door.
Absolutely. Just again, knowing. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big, my company, one of the things that we allow is for lenders to take a sneak peek at the credit report before pulling a hard pull. So it
Mhm.
allows borrowers to kind of address issues before they get a denial. So that a denial is what we're trying to avoid.
Mhm.
And so if they're able to say, oh, I didn't know I had a electric bill or a cable bill from my last apartment that went into default. That's why I got denied. Let me fix it. It makes that moment it's a teachable moment. It's okay. Well, my next apartment, let me be aware that I disconnect everything. Those things happen. You can save a lot of money by just being aware of what's on your credit. You're like, I'm not paying late fees. You know, let's look at a $10 late fee 12 times a year and how much money you're wasting.
And the
Um,
interest.
and that's on a installment debt on credit cards. That is such a high interest rate. Think about what you're paying, and you have to have fun. We have to do things that bring us joy,
Yeah.
but we also should be aware of the fallback, which is do things with limits, do things with limitations, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where that you know that very expensive dress that you wanted or pair of pants or tie is not going to kind of ruin your day if it gets ruined. It's not going to, if it gets stolen. You want to make sure that you're not overspending, you're not overextending yourself. And
Mhm.
taking a look at your credit will let you know. You're like, well, wow, I have all these apps on my TV that I'm not looking at, and each one is $4. I have, $50 worth of TV that I'm not watching. Time to delete some
It,
apps.
it's so easy, right? It's $4. It's $10. I remember at the beginning of COVID, I went and looked at all of my recurring, like StreamYard and the,
Mhm,
Acuity and all of those. And there were several that I was using very rarely. So
mhm.
I took off probably like 35, maybe $50 a month, which adds up. But when you look at each one individually, it's only.
Mhm.
But the sum of them all is just, over time is
Yeah,
huge.
it's huge. I had a client recently that what needed to save for a family reunion in South Carolina, and she needed to afford hotel, she needed to afford gas to drive down there. And I went through her budget, and she bought a large iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts every morning.
Oh,
And I said, I don't want to take away your joy, but we're going to stop with the iced coffees every morning. I'm going to show you how to make an iced coffee. And I'm guilty. I love an iced coffee. Put some
yeah.
caramel on that, and I'm
Mhm.
here for it. But I said, you want to do this? This is how you do this. And it was costing her about $7 every day.
That just yeah, what is
She was,
the
yeah,
latte
she was
effect?
shocked. She was, yeah, the latte effect. I don't want to blame Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or any of those organizations. Trust me, this is not a hit to them. It's that stuff is delicious,
Mhm.
but you've got to be responsible. You want to go to your family reunion? She stopped spending $7 every day. She had more than enough to go. Was going to have more than enough to go. It's a simple change. It's a
Mhm.
tiny change. I didn't need her to ride her bike to work. I didn't need her to disconnect, her phone services or cancel. It was just the latte, the coffee, the iced coffee. And that changed everything. And if she stays on track, she'll have twice what she needs by the
That
time
is
we're.
so powerful, Jonathan.
Mhm. Yeah. It was getting her to do it though. It was getting her to kind of see that this was a tiny change. But
Mhm.
now she's at home barista And she's, I get an email and I hear these elaborate coffees she's making. I don't know. Her coffee supplier may have some competition if she starts, because now she's got more money. She's not spending as much,
And it isn't there sort of a, what is it called? Like a snowball effect of, man, if I $7 just on this, what's
Mhm.
one more thing that I
Mhm.
could, take off from a weekly or a daily charge or whatever?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I make the 3 ingredient bread that I learned on TikTok.
Really?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know how to. I never thought I would know how yeast works and rising doughs, but yeah, we were like, I'm still gonna buy eggs, but I can make bread,
Bread is
and
that's actually very easy.
it cuts down about half my bread budget in the month, but it's something, and it's tiny. You just got to find what works for you. If you want to take on those 3 things, when you pull back that curtain and you're like, I need to reduce this, I need to reduce that. How do you do it and still maintain your quality of life?
Excellent question. Would you be willing to just give a couple more examples? Because I think we get so ingrained in what we do every day, our head is down, that we're not even, like, okay, so $7 latte. You don't have to get rid of cable in your phone, but can you just give a couple of other examples that you've suggested to your clients that have just made a substantial impact?
I never know what's really going to work because I never know if they're going to take my advice. I'm lucky that my clients do take my advice. I had a husband and wife as clients, and I've gotten permission to talk about these stories. No names are
Mhm.
divulged, but she really liked her ladies' night. That she would go out with her female friends, and he was like, "Well, you go to the bars, you buy dinner, like that costs money. I like it's every week, it's once a week." And she said, "Well, it's the only time I see my friends. I work all day." And I said, "Why don't you guys meet together at somebody's house and everybody bring a bottle of wine? There's no tip involved."
Mhm.
And the husband like lit up and he was like, "I will let you have the house." So she started doing it. And an evening, which would usually cost her $50 to $100, now costs her the price of a bottle of $2 Chuck.
Maybe something a little nicer.
A little nicer, but like $2 Chuck was like I mean she if you put a Chardonnay over ice in a wine glass, I think $2 Chuck can be on that list.
Definitely.
And that's what she liked to do. And her husband was so happy because it was so clear that after 6 months of doing this, that there was a definitive change in his budget.
Their
And
budget.
he was like, I can't believe that just hosting it what saved us that much money. And he was mind blown because they were trying to save money and they were trying to find ways to not impact her
Right.
life or his life. And they're like, hey, how about we just host ladies' night? And so her friends kind of rotate and everybody brings a bottle of wine versus everybody paying for drinks, tipping. It's kind of made, again, it's changing the way you think about how you do things, especially if money is an issue. Some of us can walk around and be like, oh, I don't have to worry about money. I make quite a bit and my expenses are low. But most people are really feeling the price of gas. Is it a $5 dozen of eggs, or a tomato in Vermont that can cost $4? I mean,
It's
you
true.
know. So we're saying like these are real things, like maple syrup, which I love, is like more expensive than gas. So how do I
So good
make these things work in my life and not
though.
impact my quality of life? I'm like happy to get up every morning, and how do I do that? Well, these are the way you do things.
So, what would you recommend people do that are curious or that are in debt and really need to reach out and start a conversation with someone? I know, looking at your numbers, what is your net worth? What do you owe? What do you have? Those the basic numbers, but can you give some tips and tools for people to start the conversation with a professional?
Um,
Whether it's their local banker, because like you said, I think a lot of people, they have a local bank that they use, or a bank,
mhm.
but they don't even think to reach out and create and build a relationship with their banker.
I mean, that is a really, really good point because they don't know it exists.
Mhm.
I could say, hey, everybody, make an appointment, come see me. That's great. That's wonderful marketing. Thanks, Lisa. The other side of it is throughout the state, there are select credit unions that have HUD counselors.
What is HUD?
HUD, her Housing and Urban Development. They have HUD counselors that provide financial education, and often it has to do with mortgages. People who are delinquent, people who foresee a delinquency, some people who are in a divorce or family hardship and they want to keep the house, but there's a million circumstances. The circumstances are as unique as fingerprints, and seeing a HUD counselor can help. I was a HUD counselor for many, many years. A lot of my lending and mortgage mitigation experience was gained through that. And I had fantastic mentors. And I would say they should start there. They could find a HUD counselor or a pre-qualification consultant like myself and start there. Because if that prepares you, if you want to qualify for something, start thinking, would I be able to qualify for a car if my car broke down?
Being proactive is really what I'm hearing is
Being
the best
proactive,
choice.
exactly. Exactly. And if you already have the debt, being proactive might make you see that some of the debt can be handled differently. Not all debt is treated the same. Some debt is collection debt, which means it's been sold to a bill collector, which means you might be able to negotiate that amount down. Some debt is hospital debt that, America already struggles with medical issues when it comes to debt and how much it costs. Maybe the hospital has a program that assists you in paying that debt. I mean, there are all these things, but you have to start somewhere, which is going to one of those professionals that will be able to look at them and say, this is how you handle this. This is how you handle this. There are situations that you have to go and see a bankruptcy specialist. I'm not a bankruptcy or a tax specialist. I refer those out. But there might be situations where you have to go see a tax specialist, a bankruptcy specialist, a financial advisor. There's quite a few great ones in Vermont, or a financial planner. All these different professionals that you can go and see, but start with one of them.
So I
They'll
have a
connect you to
question
another.
for people who are in debt, right? They're behind their bills. Money is not necessarily flowing. What are, is going and meeting with a HUD official, HUD officer free? What are some of the free things that people can do to start this process?
The HUD counselors usually are free. They may have a sliding scale based on income. I think they are some in southern Vermont, central and northern Vermont. I don't think there are many, so the waiting list might be a little bit longer. But that does exist, and usually it's free. You don't have to be a member of the credit union to take advantage of the HUD counselor
Great to know.
benefits. I think HUD has done a really, really good job of making sure that was available to everyone. But that's a good place to start. A lot of my clients, when they come to me, they're coming to me because they have the funds to pay for my service, but also what I'm mitigating down the road saves them hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. But I think people who go to see a HUD counselor are already struggling with certain basic necessities,
Right.
like paying their electric bill. They're behind on that. And I think a sliding scale or a completely free service really does provide the most benefit to the community. Winooski has a HUD Counselor Opportunities Credit Union, and they're a fantastic program. And they are helping that entire community with getting banking services and becoming homeowners. They specialize in that.
So proactive, there are free options out there for you to start the process.
Mhm.
There are people like you that can help negotiate credit debt or whatever, credit card debt or something like that. There's a lot of different options.
Mhm.
We need to set that shame down because it's just suffocating us and having, adding to it.
It adds to the medical issue,
Oh
which
gosh,
costs more
mental,
money.
physical, spiritual, financial, all of it.
People make themselves physically ill when they think about a bill collector. I've heard clients cry and tell me when the phone rang and it wasn't a phone number that they knew. They knew it was a bill collector, and it would stress them out and they wouldn't even want to answer their phone. And I totally understood that. Before the onset of cell phones and caller ID, We just hadn't had to answer the phone.
Right?
You know,
Not.
but now we could kind of screen them, so they know that we're
Mhm.
screening them. So now they have more aggressive tactics, and they do send you letters, they do call your job, they do these things. So that stress would add to medical issues.
And isn't it best to be, and I know we've talked about this, proactive, but aren't my understanding is that credit companies or banks, whatever, are willing to work with you if you are proactive instead of
Yes.
running and hiding. It's just so much better for your psyche, for your physical health, all of it, financial
Most
health.
of those financial institutions have a department or a person who is there to help you. They have mitigation services in the mortgage department and the regular consumer loan department. Usually the servicing department will help you. They have so much. I mean, I've worked in those departments. So the list of tools available to them are great. But if you don't tell them, they won't know to use them or even offer you or even give you a selection on how to fix that. And learning what I learned during my years in the financial institutions, I realized that their financial institution does not exist to harm their customers. It is not in their best interest to charge them late fees. It is not in their best interest to make the customer angry because they were late on a loan. That takes precious resources away from people who could be servicing other loans and creating other lending. Trust me, the financial institution does not spend its day trying to screw over its borrowers. And so they actually have often a set of safeguards and programs to help. But but the borrowers don't tell them, we're struggling, we're hurting, we need a little help. They have what do you call it? It's a loan, like you can skip a loan payment.
Mhm.
It just means if your loan was supposed to
You
end on
add it
one
onto the
day,
end.
it adds on because you need that 1 month you had a hardship, but you have to tell them, and they'll have you fill out the proper paperwork, and it will exist. I mean, these things happen. I have never met a lender who didn't want the loans that they wrote to be sustainable
Mhm.
and be paid through to the end of the term. That's their goal. It's not great when you're a lender and your loans default consistently. When I started out lending, I was bad at it, and that's what happened to my loans. So I learned really quickly that loans have to be sustainable. In order for you to become a good lender, you got to lend properly and also offer programs that help you keep those loans sustainable and rotating.
I could go on forever. This is just, I think it's such a important topic to really talk about, but we are a little over time. So what I'd
To
love to ask you,
part two.
what what I'd love to ask you is, could you give three, as you were just talking, this popped into my mind, the three different areas, whether it's a summary of what we've talked about for people to reach out to that are curious, right? You can reach out to your local banker, but giving them some direction on where to start the outreach to gain some support.
Um, if you are struggling with just the process of, let's say you want to accomplish home ownership, there are a lot of institutions that have a path to home ownership. The market isn't that great, that inventory isn't that great, but you can stay ready. You can stay ready. You can start the work now. And go to your local credit union. If they don't have the answer, they will direct you to someone who does. Often credit unions work together with other credit unions to make sure that the population is serviced 100%.
Mhm.
Also, be upfront. It does not benefit you at all to be disillusioned about what's going on with your finances. Know what your credit card debt is. It doesn't benefit you to think that the credit card debt doesn't exist. It doesn't hurt. Know the ugly truth. It's like getting on the scale. Yeah, just know, because you may find out that it's not as bad as you think. I have a lot of clients that often don't. They think it's worse than it is. And of course, communicate when you need help. Reach out. It is not good if you have this stress on you to just sit with it. Find that one friend. Her name might be Lisa. that, will help you out, and give you some good advice, will kick you in the head sometimes in
But
order for
not the
you to
head,
see
the butt.
things clearly. I need sometimes to see things clearly, and I do it. I need to reach out. So if I need it, I would think that everybody needs that person that they can reach out to that will say, hey, you don't need to have that iced coffee every day.
Mhm.
So find support, use your financial system, and know that there is a path to things. Finances can always change. They are ever evolving.
This is perfect. Jonathan, thank you so much. I really do
You're
appreciate
welcome. Thank you for having me. Part 2, I expect a reschedule email.
it. Perfect. I would
All
love to
right.
ask one more question though.
Yes.
What one thing would you really want people, if they only took one thing away from this conversation today, what's the most powerful thing that you would like for them to really learn, lean into?
Well, you asked me this question earlier when we were in the green room, and
Yes.
I thought about it, and I would say is money is personal. Money is personal. We spend 8 hours a day earning it to spend it on those who are closest to us and for the things that are close to ourselves. It is personal. Treat it personal. It is not disconnected from your personal life. It is absolutely personal. And whether you're a business owner, whether you work for someone, the money you earn, it is personal. You get up every day, you put 100% into it. It is personal. Treat it as such.
Perfect. Thank you.
All
I
right.
really appreciate it. Where can people get in touch with you if they'd like to connect with you? Are you on social media, your email, your
You
website?
can
What
get to my website, vermontconsumercredit.com, and make an appointment. Everything I do is based on discretion, and I do ask permission when I do interviews like this. If people wouldn't mind me sharing some of that information, it helps. Other people's stories do help more people. So I tend to try to stay off some social media because so much of what I do is confidential. So if they could go to my website, vermontconsumercredit.com, they can reach out. They can reach me there. Become a member.
Perfect. That sounds great.
All right.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Next week, June 21st, I have business and life coach Pam Drzwecki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She's going to be talking about how to grow in your power. So please join us next week, June 21st, 11 a.m. East Coast time for a conversation, and have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.